begin this new course. This is the first session for the course of business forecasting. So, my name is Rishiraj. So, on behalf of SIU and SSODL, I would like to welcome all of you to this course of business forecasting. So, as you can see, this is the first introductory module, and today I'll go through some PPT slides to give you an overview of what is business forecasting, where we need to apply this forecasting methods, what are the models that we have generally for forecasting business parameters, and how does it help in a broader sense the management to create more efficiency and create more profitability for the shareholders. So we have to also look business forecasting as a function and also in the broader context of shareholder value creation. So let us start. So what is business forecasting? It's basically usage of historical data and then analyze them using very various statistical techniques and analytical models to predict future business conditions. So basically the forecasting, as you see the word, is a part of predictive modeling techniques, or in the language of data science we can see it's a part of predictive analytics, is a group of predictive analytics tool. So it's a very crucial aspect of this decision making system. So any various business function have decision making systems. So business forecasting is one of the most crucial part of business functions, including finance, marketing, operations, strategic planning. You go to any domain of business management, forecasting or predicting or predictive analytics plays a crucial role. So with that note, I repeat the definition. It's a is gathering, collection, cleaning, and arranging historical data, then analyzing them using various statistical techniques, and then using analytical models to further refine them in order to predict future business parameters. For example, revenue forecasting, demand forecasting. These are two most common business forecasting variables that we have. I repeat, revenue forecasting, demand forecasting, cost forecasting, inventory forecasting, etc. Manpower forecasting for strategic planning, etc. So these are most crucial business parameters or business variables as we see. So it helps us in strategic plan to align the company's long-term goals and resources in terms of manpower, in terms of technology platforms. So it aligns the company's long-term goals with the company's available resources and helps the company to plan to acquire such resources in a long term, like in a 5-year horizon or a 10-year horizon. It helps in financial planning and budgeting, revenue forecasting, cost estimation, investment decisions. All of them depends on future estimated cash flows, future estimated cost, future estimated demand, etc. It helps in operations and supply chain management. It supports demand planning, inventory management, capacity planning for warehouses and for entire supply chain, to be very specific. It helps us to predict the customer satisfaction in terms of delivery times, failed deliveries, and perfect deliveries. It helps us specifically to employ service quality in supply chain, like e-commerce business like Amazon, Flipkart, or quick commerce business like Zepto, Blinkit, BB Now. So it helps us to specify customer satisfaction quality parameters. So the forecasting plays a major role in all these things. And of course, it helps us to manage risk, identifies potential market fluctuations, and prepare ourselves for uncertainties, especially in the financial market uncertainties. And there are two major aspects of business forecasting. One, we say qualitative forecasting method. When you use historical data, is or rather quantitative data is not available or not available in a quantity that we desire, or not available in terms of the quality of the data that we desire, or simply we do not want to use quantitative data. We just want to use a qualitative method of forecasting to have an in general idea about the market, the consumer landscape, the regulatory landscape of the country or the global regulatory landscape, economic scenario, domestic economy and the global economy. So sometimes we prefer qualitative forecasting methods. So the most common three methods are Delphi method, market research, and scenario analysis. Delphi method is where we invite subject matter experts or deep experts around a certain area, and they may have various kind of multifaceted background and expertise. For example, for economic um, landscape, we may invite economists, technology experts, government regulation experts, political, geopolitical experts, and then we invite them in a meeting, virtual or physical meeting, and allow them an unstructured discussion, videograph those discussions, record those discussions, and moderated by someone from the company who wants to have a outlook. And then those video discussions are being then summarized by experts to understand what can be the economic landscape of the country or in the global economy sense. This is a Delphi method, mainly led by unstructured discussion, sometimes moderated unstructured discussion, and experts ultimately agree through a consensus through an iterative feedback method, and then it's a constructive discussion. You can say maybe unstructured, maybe moderated unstructured, maybe little structured, but whatever be the case, they must agree to a consensus. So to that, this is the scenario that most likely to happen, kind of consensus. The most common method, next one is the market research. It allows surveys and focus group discussion to predict customer demand. It's a qualitative idea. It's not exact data crunching or number crunching. So it gives you customer test and preference, a shift in customer change, trend and customer change and preference, shift in the market volume or market size, any shift in the market scenario, how technology is influencing the market and the consumer behavior, etc. All these aspects are discussed in a qualitative manner by experts, and sometimes surveys are being floated, and directly hundreds and thousands of consumers are approached. This consumer may be human consumer, maybe B2B. So companies are approached to understand their consumption pattern and understand the market shift, the change in the market test. Then scenario analysis, we develop multiple plausible future scenarios from the market, economy, geopolitical scenario, etc., and then try to evaluate them one by one, and then we create the probabilistic structure that these are the scenarios most likely to happen in a qualitative manner, may not be in a quantitative manner. So these are three major qualitative forecasting methods: Delphi, MR, and scenario analysis. And then we move on to quantitative forecasting method. This is used when historical data is available, adequate historical data. Adequate maybe sometimes 10, 15 years, sometimes some just 1 or 2 years, sometimes just few weeks. So how much data length we will consider, that depends on how much, what is the purpose of that forecasting, and what is the way we try to use the data. So depends on the method, depends on the model that you are going to use. So length of data that we choose is also a crucial part of the forecasting. So we have time series analysis in your syllabus. We learn about moving averages. We'll have exponential smoothing technique, include simple exponential smoothing, double exponential smoothing, halt winters exponential smoothing. We'll have all three. And we have ARIMA, auto-regressive integrated moving average. So this is an application of moving average in your syllabus. Then we have causal methods, causal model. Cause means cause effect. So there must be one variable which is a cause, another variable which is an effect. There's a cause effect relationship. So this mainly we focus on regression models. We'll talk about bivariate linear regression. We'll talk about multivariate linear regression. We talk about non-linear regression also. We call them curve fitting techniques. So also we have econometric models, which is not in your syllabus. In your syllabus, we'll focus mostly on regression analysis. And there are more complicated machine learning approaches used in conjunction with computer science and technology. So we have artificial neural networks, we have decision tree analysis, we have random forest algorithm arising out of decision tree analysis. So these are advanced techniques in business forecasting. So today when I say AI, so basically we talk about machine learning, deep learning, and that leads to the behavior of that entity called artificial intelligence. So directly Mostly we do not use an AI. So the algorithm which we use for business forecasting is primarily machine learning algorithm. So machine learning algorithm mainly can be divided into two parts. Either is a neural network type of algorithm, artificial neural network, or it's a decision tree and random forest types of algorithm. So these are common business forecasting methods and models. So forecasting process, we have first need to have a problem definition, that what is the business need and what's the scope of forecasting, what are the variables that we want to forecast, and what are the supporting variables that we need to have in case of a causal analysis, that suppose a variable y depends on x1, x2, x3, x4 in the form of a multivariate linear regression. So sometimes we focus on a single variable and that depends on multiple variables. So we need to finalize the scope. So what do I mean by the scope? That one, what are the variables that you need to consider? What's the main focus variable? What are the other supporting variables? Two, what's the data length that we are going to consider? Is it just 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 8 years? So, and three, that what will be the future in terms of the length of the horizon? So, are we predicting far away, like 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Or we are predicting just for tomorrow, 1 or 2 days, 3 days? Or we are predicting near term, like 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Or predicting medium term, like 6 months to 1 year? So, this horizon of prediction that also comes under the scope of forecast. Then we have the data collection. We gather historical data and external data, secondary data, government data. Some data is available within the organization, within the system, some software system. Some of the data is not available within the company, so it is an external data that may not be available in a soft copy format. It may be hard copy, so you have to then digitize it. Sometimes we are lucky to get all the data in the soft copy format, but not in the suitable format which I need for my analysis. So we need to clean the data, find out the missing data, if there is a corruption or data missing in any column or row, and then we need to arrange the data based on the format that we need for our analysis. So this is all part of data collection and cleaning part. And if the company has data within the software system, we are lucky because it's already available, because it is already in the soft copy format. And sometimes it is may not be suitable for my analysis because the format and the columns are not suitable for my analysis. Then you have to rearrange and get the data in the format that I want it to be analyzed. And then we employ something called EDA, exploratory data analysis, which involves data consistency, the trend, seasonality, outlier, central tendency, dispersion, skewness, kurtosis. So all those basic descriptive statistics is used, and we find the basic descriptive properties, trends, and seasonalities of the basic data. This is a basic preliminary analysis before applying any further complicated algorithm or further complicated analysis on the data. So this is basically focusing on mean, median, standard deviation, variance, skewness, kurtosis, seasonality, trend, outlier identification, using box and whisker plot, etc. So basic things. We measure consistency by the ratio, mean by standard deviation. So this is basic EDA. So we will cover a basic EDA also, just for next class, just for you to have your understanding that what a basic EDA on a data is applied. Then we have to select a model and develop, or model has to be developed. Choose appropriate forecasting model based on the pattern. For example, we can use ARIMA, which is auto-regressive moving average, or SARIMA. So we need to select a model and develop that model by feeding the data slowly and cleaning the data and making it ready. Then we need to validate the model, and we have to evaluate the results or evaluate the outcome of prediction that we got, predictive and outcomes. So assess the accuracy using error matrix, PEMSE. So we that we create or generate. So how do I measure errors? We have a predicted value. Then we see the actual value in future. Then we compare the predicted value with the actual value which happened in the real business, and we try to measure the errors and try to see how much error is being created. And then we validate the model by running it on the beta version and see and converging the errors to a minimal value. And finally implement the model. deploy the forecasting model, and refine the model over time by monitoring the outcomes of those models and comparing it with the actual real life values, actual values. And we see the model to be stabilized and then work for some time. So this is the six important steps for building a model, validating the model, and then implementing the model. And before selecting and developing a model, we must go through step one, two, three, because without that, obvious. So what are the challenges in business forecasting? First, we have a data quality issue. So the data that we collect, even from companies' own sources, or from a market research, or from a CRM software, or from a secondary report from industry journals, or government of India, or state government reports, which you can access through public domain when government publishes lot of reports, or you can access through RTI. So a lot of missing, inconsistent, outdated data may be there. A lot of cases, the consumer research data is not um, validated. It's not. Sometimes they are inconsistent with one response with another response. So we have to face those data quality issue and clean the data as much as possible. Then there is an uncertainty and external factors. So this business forecasting is a dangerous game, any predictive model. So we have economic shifts, rapid economic changes can happen through war, famine, conflict, geopolitical changes. Suddenly, Donald Trump came president from January this year and signed a series of executive order and that changed the global landscape through tariff war and other kinds of hostile negotiations. And Donald Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord and other climatic changes, withdrawal from WHO, World Health Organization, and halting US aid programs in various developing nations. It changed the economic scenario in a lot of countries. So this is a global uncertainty which is being created through these economic shifts. And the competition may suddenly shift gear and intensity of the rivals activities or competitors activity may go up, and that may change the market scenario, and my prediction may not work, my forecasted value may not be working anymore. And there can be rapid regulatory changes or sudden regulatory changes which company could not manage to lobby in their favor. So that may completely change the ball game. So all my predicted values can be absolutely invalid or irrelevant. There can be black swan events like COVID-19 or say Israel-Hamas war, which nobody could predict, which has got a very, very low probability to occur. But if it occurs, it has a huge impact on the business outcome or the economic outcome. It's called black swan event. So what's a black swan event? It's an event, maybe geopolitical, maybe economic, that event like COVID-19 outbreak, sudden outbreak, and countrywide lockdown and announced in March 2020, if you remember those days. So these are called black swan events. The probability of occurrence is very low, or nobody could predict it that it will happen so soon. But if it happens, it has got a huge impact. So that is what it is. Overfitting the model, sometimes risk of excessive complexity leading to poor generalization. So very complex model is fitting on some particular phase of historical data. Suppose it is fitting on just 2 quarters of the data, but when I try to predict it, it losing the generality and prediction becoming haywire, becoming very bad. So it is overfitted for a certain segment or certain period of data, but not generally suitable for prediction. This is the problem called overfitting in the model. So some models are so obsessed with fitting and they focus on a certain part of the data. Sometimes they lose generality of prediction or lose the validity of the predictive model by overfitting the data. And there are behavioral biases, human bias affecting qualitative forecasting and quantitative forecasting. Both are possible. That, for example, there's something called confirmation bias. A group of researchers, they already believe that this is what is happening or this is what going to happen, and they build a predictive model and they use data, use complex algorithms, and then they predict. But that predict is rooted and corrupted by their own confirmation bias. They already thought that that will happen, so they chosen the model accordingly. suitably to suit their own personal bias and assumptions. They have chosen the data accordingly, which suits their own personal bias and assumptions. So this confirmation bias can ruin any forecasting, any predictive algorithm, any predictive model, be it qualitative forecasting or quantitative forecasting. So where do I apply business forecasting? Most common application in business, it's self forecasting. We predict demand for product services. When I say sales, there are two aspects. It's the quantity that is being predicted. We call it demanded quantity or quantity demanded, or the or we call it sales volume. Quantity demanded is also known as sales volume. So we can predict volume of sales, or we can sell revenue, sales revenue, call it sales value forecasting. So I repeat, sales volume forecasting and sales value forecasting. So when I say sales forecasting, that includes both volume and value. Volume is the quantity demanded and revenue is the price into quantity. For example, I can predict that Maruti Suzuki will sell a Swift Desire 30,000 units in the next month of April, 30,000 units. This is a volume. And they will say the average realization will be around 9.7 lakhs after discounts and all. So they can say that from in the month of April, from Swift Desire, all the models of Swift Desire, all the variants of Swift Desire, Maruti Suzuki can expect a revenue of 30,000 units into 9.5 lakhs in the state of Maharashtra. So they can have a geography specific, month specific volume and value forecasting. This is called self forecasting. Got it? Next called financial forecasting. So it estimates a broader, not product wise, broader revenues, profits, cost, cash flow on a broader basis, organization wide basis. For multinational companies, they have financial forecasting on country to country basis or region to region basis, continent to continent basis. It helps them in their budgeting and planning for the entire year. So it helps them in their cash flow budgeting, in the cash budgeting, and thereby investing activity has to be decided. We call them capex budget or capital expenses or capital budgeting as we call it. Then inventory and supply chain forecasting. So for manufacturing companies, e-commerce companies, trading companies, quick commerce companies, is a huge challenge to manage their inventory. So prediction of demand and prediction of inventory, that also help them to manage their entire supply chain activity in a greater manner. And then there is economic forecasting. The economists and other economic experts, allied economic experts, or environmental experts, geological experts, geographical experts. So they sit together to have an economic forecasting. There are macroeconomic indicators like interest rates, inflation, GDP growth. These are three major economic parameters or macroeconomic parameters that we try to forecast and create a market trend in terms of income, per capita income, consumption, per capita consumption, aggregate income. So income and consumption study, population growth or degrowth study. So all those are broadly come under economic forecasting. So I repeat, interest rates, inflation, unemployment rates, GDP growth rates. These are major macroeconomic indicators along with consumption and expenditure and income patterns in a macroeconomic sense, not an individual sense. Then tools and softwares very commonly used for business forecasting. Microsoft Excel, my favorite. In their entire course, we will extensively use Microsoft Excel. So I encourage you to open your Microsoft Excel sheet and work along with me from this point of time. Whenever I stop the PPT, I'll open a Microsoft Excel, and throughout my course, I'll be extensively using Microsoft Excel. And sometimes Google Spreadsheet, although Google Spreadsheet does not carry all the features and add-in programs of Microsoft Excel, but sometimes it's a very handy forecasting tool, common business forecasting tool, and which can be shared as a collaborative tool. So Google Sheets has this advantage of having a collaborative nature. Multiple people simultaneously can work in Google Spreadsheets. R and Python, very, very common programming language in the field of business forecasting. Python becoming exceedingly popular and becoming more and more popular than all other programming languages in this field, are becoming slightly obscure day by day, still used to some extent. Power BI and Tableau, these are data visualization and trend analysis tools. These are not exactly a programming language or a programming tool. So Power BI, when I integrate with Excel, it gives you excellent visualization, multiple charts converging into a beautiful dashboard. So Power BI and Tableau both helps us to create charts and dashboards and helps us to visualize the trend and visualize the anomalies, outliers, and visualize the gap sometimes in the marketplaces. So Power BI, Tableau are mainly visualization tools. They are not programming languages. And there are large, very large enterprise solution software like SAP, Oracle, SAS. They are in they have integrated business forecasting tool within that huge software called SAP. Is an enterprise resource planning software. We call it ERP software. So SAP and Oracle both are enterprise solutions or enterprise resource planning software. And within that huge ocean called SAP, enterprise resource planning software, there are integrated business forecasting modules which you can use for business forecasting. So this is the PPT that I will share this PPT with the SSODL office. You will get it. Don't worry. So I will unshare it. What I'll do now, I will open an Excel sheet and we will try to open uh, an Excel sheet now. Let me see. Yeah, I have shared an Excel sheet. It will be visible in few seconds, I believe. You can verify that you can see this Excel sheet or not. Can everyone see the Excel sheet?
Yes, yes, sir. I can give
Oh,
you.
right. Oh, the learners are not there. Great. Oh my, understood.
They actually go through with the learning recording, sir.
Okay, so this is not a live session in that sense.
No, no, it
Fine.
is a live session, but few of the times they'll join, but maximum of them are depending on the live sessions recordings.
Oh, okay, okay. Great, great. Not a problem. So if they desire, they can join. Otherwise, they have a facility to watch it as a recording.
Yes, yes.
So we have already touched upon this qualitative and quantitative forecasting. So what are the key drivers in the business in the long run? Technology today is the biggest influence on business landscape, influencing a very small business like a small restaurant to a very large business like a power plant or airlines. Product innovation, product and service innovation, customer test and preference, which is changing and shifting very rapidly, and the regulatory environment. These four are the key drivers in the business. So companies must use their forecasting tools and techniques around these four key drivers to understand, sometimes qualitatively, sometimes in a quantitative manner. So what do I forecast in quantitative forecasting? Couple of examples are like sales revenue value, sales volume demand, cost items, inventory, profit, cash flow. These are top six items that we generally use. Uh, Today we will just go through the preliminary things before we go into moving averages from the next class. The next class will start with moving averages. So today we will just go through certain ideas. So first we talk about growth-based forecasting. So we will learn first year-on-year growth phase forecasting, average YOY. YOY is year on year. Average year on year growth is the first technique that we will learn. These are all top of the envelope kind of analysis. These are easy and used commonly to have a quick forecast, not a very comprehensive business model which we develop and then use forecast using algorithms. This average YOY growth, SAGR and CAGR, they are a very common back of the envelope, quick and easy to comprehend forecasting techniques. So first we learn about the growth based forecasting. So let us assume this data. Suppose the company's last 8 years revenue is being projected, not projected, data is collected from 2017 to 2024. We have 8 years revenue for a very small enterprise. It was 12 crore to 12 crore in the year 2017, which grew slowly, and then 2024 revenue was 40 crore. It's a small to medium enterprise. The revenue growth was from 12 crore to 40 crore, and it's a given data. We collected the data from company's historical revenue records, and then in the first method called average annual YOY growth, average YOY, average annual YOY growth. So we can YOY growth means year on year growth in revenue. So first we calculate what was the growth in revenue from 2018 to 2017. Formula is written: final value within bracket, final value 2018 was 15 crore minus initial value in 2017 was 12 crore. We close the bracket and divide it by the initial value of 12 crore. I repeat, final value minus initial value by initial value. So it was 25% growth from 2017 to 2018. Now we can drag and we see the company sometimes grew at 25%, 20%, 22%, sometimes degrown -9% in 2021. Most probably COVID, a second wave has impacted company's growth probably. And then again it jumped and recovered sharply, K-shaped recovery from 21 to 22 post-COVID, a sudden boost in the economic consumption. So 45%, and then it is flattened to 10% growth, and then 25% growth. So these are the annual growth year on year in their revenue. So first we calculate average year on year growth. First we calculate average year on year growth. I use the average formula AVE, RAGE. I repeat, AVE, RAGE, average of this year on year growth. This is 19.78%. We can find the average year on year growth as 19.78%. Now we apply this 19% growth to 40 crore. The last recorded revenue was 40 crore. So 2025 financial year end, the projection is 40 crore into 1 plus G. G is the growth rate, the average year on year growth which you have computed. So our predicted revenue is 47.91 crore. Our predicted revenue or estimated revenue for 2025 is 47.91 crore. So this is the first method, very quick back of the envelope analysis that we wanted to discuss. So I repeat the step. We first calculate the year on year growth, and then we have dragged it to get all the year on year growth starting from 2018 to 2024. We took the average year on year growth, that is 19.78%, average of all these values, including the negative value, and then applied this 19% growth on 40 crore last recorded revenue. So we applied 40 crore into 1 plus G. G is 19.7%, and we got the forecast as 47.91. So this is what average year on year growth based forecasting. So we have considered all the data points and created an average year on year growth. Next is called simple annual growth rate. Simple annual growth rate. So 2017 revenue was 12 crore. 2024 revenue was 40 crore. We are calculating SAGR, simple annual growth rate. The incremental revenue, let me understand what do you mean by incremental revenue. So from 2017 to 2024, how much increase in revenue is been experienced? So 40 crore minus 12 crore. The incremental revenue is 28 crore. Time from 2017 to 24, how many years passed by? So answer is 2024 minus 2017. That is 2024 minus 2017. That is 7 years. So per year increment is how much? Per year the increment is 28 crore total increment divided by 7 years. So per year it has grown by 4 crore. So SAGR is simple annual growth rate is per year average increment in revenue divided by the initial revenue recorded 12 crore. Initial, so that is 33.33%. So SAGR is equal to incremental revenue per year divided by time. So that is 33.33%. Now we can estimate the 2025 by the same logic that last will grow by 33.33%. So 1 plus the SAGR and we apply, we get 53.33. So using this method, I am getting a revenue prediction of 53.33 crore. The last method has given me a revenue forecasting of 47.91 crore. So this is called SAGR. So instead of breaking down into these 4 steps, incremental revenue, time, per year increment on an average, and then SAGR, instead of using these 4 steps, I can use directly, we can calculate. So the incremental revenue per year is 40 minus 12 by 7. This is the incremental revenue per year that we divided by the initial revenue, that is 33.33. The incremental revenue per year divided by initial revenue. It was a typo. Initial revenue. I have corrected it. You can see initial revenue, not the time. So we get 33.33% by applying in a single cell the concept of per year increment divided by initial revenue. We applied in the single cell and got 33.33%. Here I have shown you step by step, 5 steps. This is a simple annual growth rate. And then finally we move on to compounded annual growth rate, the most important of the growth. So this is method A, this is method B. Then we calculate compounded annual growth rate. So I hope everyone knows the compound interest formula, that future value is equal to present value into 1 plus r to the power n. This is called a discrete compounding formula, and period of compounding should be minimum 1 quarter or 90 days. Below that, this formula should not be applied. I repeat the warning. The compounding period should be minimum 90 days or 1 quarter. So we have quarterly compounding scenario, we have annually compounding scenario, etc. So this is the compounding formula. So if I can rearrange the formula, then we can see 1 plus r to the power n is equal to f by p. 1 plus r equal to f by p to the power 1 by n, and r equal to f by p to the power n minus 1. So this is known as CAGR formula. So what is CAGR? This R, the compounding rate R, is known as the CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. So this is the R, compounded annual growth rate, CAGR. So it's f by p to the power 1 by n minus 1. So here In my forecasting case, 2017 revenue 12 crore and 2024 revenue 40 crore will be used as present value and future value. So I will assume that this forecasting rate, the CAGR calculation, we assume that we have 12 crore rupees. We had, sorry, in the past tense, we had 12 crore rupees, and we go to a bank in 2017 and invest in a fixed deposit. And in 2024, fixed deposit matures with a 40 crore total maturity amount. So 12 crore invested, 40 crore total maturity amount, and we have this annually compounding scenario. So under this assumption, I'm using the CAGR formula very closely. So double bracket start, future value 2024 value is 40 minus present value 12 to the power 1 by 7, because 7 years been passed by, double bracket close, minus 1. So this is 18.77. So we can calculate 2017 revenue. This is my considered as present value in the context. 2024 revenue considered as future value in the context, and time, that is n, is considered as 7 years, and then we got the CAGR. I'll do it again very slowly. A double bracket start, future value 40 divided by present value assumed as 12 to the power 1 by n is 7, double bracket close, minus 1. So that is 18.77%. So now I can apply the CAGR 18.77% to estimate the 2025 revenue. This is the forecasting part, similar to what we have done for SAGR. So last recorded revenue of 40 crore will grow to 1 plus the growth rate CAGR. This time apply CAGR, not SAGR, and the forecasted revenue is 47.51 crore. So we got three methods. We'll just learn three growth-based forecasting methods. The first method was average year-on-year growth. You can see. So we have done average year-on-year growth. We have the data and we got the average year-on-year growth as 19.78%. Applied that on the last recorded revenue 40 crore, and we got the prediction for 2025 as 47.91 crore. Then we got the SAGR. We use the SAGR concept to get the SAGR as 33.33% with the incremental revenue per year by initial revenue, and then applied that to the last recorded revenue of 40 crore to get the forecast as 53.33 crore. And then we have gone CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. We have used this formula, CAGR formula, R equal to F by P to the power n 1 by n minus 1, where R is the CAGR. So here CAGR equal to R. We applied that formula and got 18.77% and applied the 18.77% growth on the last recorded revenue of 40 crore and got the forecasted value as 47.51. Now to calculate CAGR, Excel offers a direct shortcut. I'll use this shortcut now. It's called RATE, RATE function. RATE, RATE function. It allows us to calculate CAGR directly. So first, rate function asking you few inputs. So we have to understand and provide those inputs carefully. First is n par. N par means period n, that is 7 years. Then there is something called PMT, payment. We have to ignore the PMT part. How to ignore? We put the comma, that is that parameter is ignored. Payment is basically referring to an annuity payment situation. This is not an annuity payment. We just invested 12 crore one time and then it matured as 40 crore on to 2024. There is no annual payment that happened. So there is no annuity payment scenario. So we ignored the PMT input, comma, comma. Then present value. Now we have to put an artificial minus sign on present value. Otherwise the output um, CAGR will become negative, which we do not want. So artificially we put minus 12, we click on 12. So minus 12, why minus? Because investing 12 crore from my pocket in a bank fixed deposit is basically a negative cash flow from my pocket. So in that sense, Excel is understanding it as a negative cash flow. So we have to put that as a negative cash flow. And then the future value is 40 crore. And then we close the bracket, we get the same answer 18.77%. So I repeat, I'm using RATE rate function. NPAR period is 7 years, comma, comma, payment is ignored, present value is minus 12, and then we close the bracket and go to the CAGR. And the same CAGR can be applied for prediction, 47.51 crore. So this is the CAGR based business forecasting. So before we move ahead, uh, we just want to touch upon two scenario, annually compounding and quarterly compounding. So what if the periodic, so the period of compounding is less than 1 year. So suppose we take a situation that SBI offers 8% per annum interest rate on a fixed deposit, but compound it's actually quarterly. So now I want to show the difference between the maturity amount after 5 years under two different assumptions of compounding period. So scenario 1 I am assuming annually compounding scenario, and scenario 2 I am assuming quarterly compounding scenario. So scenario 1 is 10,000 rupees I invest at 8% per annum, annually compounding and for 5 years. So I just use future value is present value 10,000 into fundamental mathematical formula 1 plus the rate of compounding 8% to the power the number of years 5 years. So the maturity amount is 14693.28. I can use the PV formula. This is F equal to, this is F equal to P into 1 plus R to the power n. So this formula is being used for 14693.28. Now the same answer we can achieve using the future value FV formula. The rate is 8% per annum. Period is 5 years. PMT payment is ignored, comma, comma. And present value I put it minus because as if I am investing from my pocket, it is a negative cash flow from my pocket. So minus 10,000. So the future value is 14693.28. So this here I have used uh, FV formula, and here I have used fundamental uh, mathematical formula that future value is equal to present value into 1 plus R to the power n. I hope you are doing it along with me. So while watching the video, please open an Excel sheet and practice it along with me. And now I go to the second assumption, quarterly compounding scenario. So now future value is present value 10,000 rupees into within bracket 1 plus. Now the rate, it says 8% per annum but compounded quarterly. So I must use a quarterly rate, not the annualized rate. So this is another bracket 8% by 4. There are 4 quarters in a year, so it will become 2% per quarter. Bracket close, double bracket close to the power. Now since the rate is on quarterly basis, to the n cannot be 5 years. N must be in terms of quarters. So how many quarters in 1 year? 4 quarters. How many quarters in 5 years? 5 into 4 quarters. So there is 9.47, and you see the difference between this is 14,859 minus 14,693. So 166 rupees of interest is extra because it is compounded quarterly instead of compounding annually. So more interest is earned. 166 rupees is the difference at the end of 1 year. Now the same I will do once again using the FV formula. I am using FV rate. Now rate I'll again put 8% by 4 quarterly rate, comma, period I will say 5 into 4, 20 quarters, 5 into 4. So rate is 2% per annum, but the period is 20 quarters, 5 into 4, 20 quarters. Payment is ignored, comma, comma. Present value I'll put a artificial minus sign to indicate it is an investment from my pocket of 10,000, and then we close the bracket. We get the same answer, 14,859.47, which we have already got using the mathematical formula. So this is a comparison between annually compounding and quarterly compounding, less than 1 year compounding formula. So, so now this is just a practice. I am not doing it. You can do for 6 months what will be the maturity amount using mathematical formula and using FB formula. So please note, for less than 90 days bank fixed deposits, bank always calculate daily simple interest. So daily simple interest, they do not offer compound interest. So they offer daily simple interest for anything less than 90 days. So for 90 days, it's just 1 quarter. So to the power 1. And for 180 days, that is used to the power 2. And the rate will be per quarter. So this is homework. When you practice, you use this method. So use both the methods to calculate the maturity amount of 10,000, 8% per annum for 6 months, compounded quarterly. So let's move on to continuously compounding formula. So this is used for any period, even for a second, for a nanosecond, if something is compounding period. So can be used for compounding period less than 90 days. So this is can be used for compounding period less than 90 days. Formula is F equal to P into e to the power Rn. F equal to P into e to the power Rn. E is a mathematical constant and F is a future value, P is a present value, E is a mathematical constant, R is a rate of compounding, N is a period of compounding. So the CAGR will be log of F by P by N. So log of F by P by N, this is the CAGR. So we can use for 30 days. I'm using it very, very slowly. Very, very slowly. Future value F is equal to P 10,000 into within bracket e to the power. E to the power, E is a mathematical constant. So e to the power, the Excel shortcut is EXP. Now within bracket is a power R into N. So R is daily compounding interest. So 8% by 365, that is R, into N. N is 30 days. So daily interest into number of days. Please remember R and N must be in the same time frame. So if R is per annum, N compounding period should be 1 year. If the compounding period is a quarter, so quarterly compounding scenario, R should be expressed as per quarter. If the compounding period is a daily compounding scenario, then the interest rate should be expressed as per day. So here I have used per day interest 8% by 365 into the number of days. So e to the power r n, e to the power r into n into p. So that is 10090.98. So there is a 1 month maturity period, daily compounding 8% per annum. Now for the same problem, if I use daily simple interest, P plus PRT, so that is 10,000 plus PRT is 10,000 into R is 8% by 365, daily simple interest into T is 30 days. So P plus PRT, simple interest is added. So daily, 30 days daily simple interest. So this is giving 10,065.75. So see, there is a still 25 rupee difference between continuously compounding formula future value and daily simple interest based future value. So linear growth versus non-linear growth. So this continuously compounding formula is F equal to P into e to the power Rn. So this is the situation. So we have learnt about CAGR, we have learnt about SAGR, we have also learnt about compounding formula for more than 90 days in compounding period and compounding formula for less than 90 days compounding period. That is called continuously compounding formula. So we'll move on. We'll talk about linear and nonlinear interpolation and simple understanding of percentage change and how to describe percentage change. We'll talk about moving average method from the next class. So now we talk about linear interpolation and extrapolation. So linear extrapolation is nothing but forecasting. So this is also comes a broad understanding of basic growth based forecasting. So you have to understand what do you mean by interpolation and extrapolation, linear interpolation and extrapolation. So I use the same data. Suppose 2017 revenue of the company was 12 crore and 2024 revenue was 40 crore. So this is the given data. This is in rupees crore. This is also in rupees crore. So assuming that the data had a linear growth, data is the wrong word here. Revenue had a linear growth between 2017 and 2024. Please estimate the revenue in 2020. Use linear interpolation method. So first we will answer the linear interpolation and next we will say assuming that the revenue had a linear growth between 2027 and 2024 and the linear pattern will continue. Please estimate the revenue in 2026. So use linear extrapolation method. So these are two questions, A and B, that we're trying to answer using linear interpolation and using linear extrapolation. right? So let's start. So we have a linear interpolation, that is nothing but using the same SAGR we are going to. So this is nothing but SAGR interpolation, exploit and extrapolation. This is the usage or rather application of SAGR. Is an application of SAGR as a concept. Linear interpolation, linear extrapolation. So the linear growth is nothing but a simple interest growth. So we can say linear growth can be interpreted as a simple interest based growth, or we say simple growth. So we can now calculate SAGR. We have time 7 years. So we calculate SAGR directly. Already we have done it. I'm doing it again. So the incremental revenue is 40 minus, sorry, this is double bracket start. Incremental revenue is 40 minus 12 per annum. This is 7. So this is the incremental revenue per annum divided by the initial revenue, which is 33.33%. Now linear interpolation, 2020 revenue. So estimated revenue in 2020 using linear interpolation. So I'm using a simple interest formula. So that means 12 crore into 1 plus RT. R is 33.33% into time. 2020 from 2017 is 3 years. So in 3 years it will be 24. So 24 crore. So in simple interest, based growth, future value equal to P into 1 plus RT. So basically you can take P common, P plus P into R into T. So P plus P into R into T, you can take P common, it will become P into 1 plus R into T. So I've used same formula, which is P into 1 plus R into T. T is 3 years. So, so, so time from 2017 to 2020 is 3 years. Yeah, sorry, it was dropped. I'll share my Excel sheet once again. Yeah, so I've done a linear um, interpolation using a simple growth, so SAGR or simple growth rate. and this is the 2020 estimated revenue using linear interpolation was 24 crore. Actual revenue may not be 24 crore. Now the second part will use a linear extrapolation. So this is linear extrapolation. So this is application of SAGR based growth. SAGR based growth forecasting. So we can just like interpolation means within 2017 to 2024, and this time from 2017 to 2026, I want the revenue in 26, so that is 9 years, and we can apply the simple growth. So SAGR, I will just copy the SAGR as 33.33%. Now from 9 years, it is beyond the 2024. That's why it's called extrapolation. Why this is called extrapolation? Because the given horizon of the data is 2017 to 2024. If I need to estimate any value within this time horizon, we call it interpolation. And if I have to estimate and forecast any value beyond this time horizon, we call it extrapolation. So this is extrapolation because I am doing for 2026 linear extrapolation for 2026 revenue for estimated revenue in 2026. So same I am using P. P is 40. P is 12 into 1 plus CAGR is 33% into N. N is 9 years extrapolation beyond the scope of 2024. So this is 48. So using linear interpolation from 12 crore, we are getting 48 crore as linear extrapolation. So 12 crore at the same rate will grow at 48 crore. So this is linear extrapolation and linear interpolation. Now change. Next concept is absolute change and relative change. So absolute change and relative change. Now suppose given data is so this is my year, this is my revenue, this is my absolute change, and this is called relative change, also known as percentage change. Both are same, relative change or percentage change. So I'm just calculating same as year on year growth that we have learned, but we can also now look at relative change or percentage change. So for example, we had this data. So absolute change we can calculate 15 minus 12. The absolute change is the next year value minus previous year value, or the final value minus the previous value. So we can drag the absolute change and then we can calculate the percentage change or the relative change, which is final value minus the initial value bracket close divided by the initial value, which is 25%. So this is called absolute change and this is called percentage change or relative change, right? Absolute change and relative change. Relative change means percentage change. Final value minus initial value by initial value, and this is absolute change. Okay. Now there's a small concept, and we'll move on to moving averages after this. So when we compare two data points which are expressed in percentage, right? So how do I express it? So be careful because everything will become percentage. We need to be really, really careful on that. So suppose this is our GDP growth figure. So GDP growth figure. GDP growth figure in India. This is GDP growth figure. So let me check. So I'm just typing the data 6.8, 6.45. This is actual data 6.8% Indian GDP growth in 2017, then 6.45%, then 3.87%. First time came below 4%. Then the COVID hit very, very badly, minus 5.78%. It took us back by almost 2 years. And then 9.69% and 6.99%, 9.69%, then 6.99%. This is Government of India data. Then 7.58% and 7%. 7.58% and then we have 7.00. This is the annual GDP growth figure, not quarterly GDP growth. So these are last 7 years, last 8 years GDP growth. This is a growth figure. There's an absolute change. When I calculate, you see these are absolute change. The absolute change themselves are like minus 3.5%. Minus, these are absolute change. Absolute change also in percentage and relative change also in percentage. So when you say GDP change by 2.58%, you have to be very, very careful to mention it. This is an absolute change I am talking about. This is not a relative change. For example, you see from 6.45% to 3.87%, 2018 to 2019, the absolute change was minus 2.58%, but relative change was 40%. So GDP dropped by 40% almost. And then from minus 5.78% to plus 9.69%. So GDP growth was, absolute figure is 15.47%. But here we have to take this as an absolute value. Absolute value of, no, sorry. The absolute value should be the denominator. Otherwise, it will give a negative return, negative answer. So this is plus 109%. So this is an absolute value that we have considered, plus 9%. So this is minus 5.78 to 9.69% is, yeah, absolute value of 5 point. Here the absolute value should be used. 109% change. So drop, drop, drop. 109% change. This is a minus. This is plus. Sixty-three minus 2. Yeah, it is a drop. No, why is this coming as minus? This is a positive change. 8 minus 6.9%. And do it again. This is 7.58% minus 6.99% divided by 6.9. This is 8.44% up, and this is again drop. So this is 6.99% minus 9.69%. Yeah. So when you say relative change or percentage change, and the number that you are comparing themselves are in percentage, then be very, very careful when you say it has changed by 2% or 5%. You must mention it is a so we must mention that. So we must mention that this change is absolute change and this change is percentage change. So that's the reason to distinguish between relative change and absolute change. Absolute change is not expressed as percentage, they say in basis point or percentage point. So we'll stop here. We'll talk about the concept of basis point or percentage point. So concept of basis point and percentage point. So while comparing two values which are already expressed in percentage form, The absolute change is commonly expressed as basis point or percentage point. So here we are comparing suppose two values here. 7.58% and 7%. It has changed by 0.58%. Now, when I say it is changed by 0.58%, it's a highly confusing statement. We have to mention is the absolute change or relative change. The absolute change is only minus 0.58%. Relative change is minus 7.65%. So relative change and absolute change is confusing. So we, to avoid the confusion, when we compare two values which are already expressed in percentage like GDP growth, inflation, unemployment rate, interest rate, repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, etc., we avoid this confusion by using the basis point or percentage point. So please note that 100 basis point equal to 1 percentage point. So we can say that we can say that the GDP growth from 2023 to 2024 changed by negative 58 basis point. So negative 58 basis point change from 7.58% to 7% is negative 58 basis point. That's the way we say. That is basically minus 0.58% of absolute change, which is same as saying that the absolute change is minus 0.58%. So you can say GDP growth from 2023 to 24 changed by negative 58 basis points, which is same as saying the absolute change is minus 0.58%. So absolute change we compare in basis point or percentage point. So, but the relative change is always expressed as minus as a percentage. Relative change, we say that's a 7% change, but the absolute change is 58 basis point. So one more example, I can say but the relative change is minus 7.65%, which is not expressed in basis point. That is not a custom. Relative change, we do not express in basis points. So also we can say GDP growth from 2022 to 2023. One more example I'm saying changed by 59 basis point and The relative change is 8.44% plus 8.44%. So we stop here today. I just revise whatever we have discussed. We briefly discussed about in a PowerPoint slide. We briefly discussed about what is business forecasting, how it is defined, and what are the common methods, both qualitative and quantitative methods. Also outlined your syllabus, that what is there, what is not there, and then we moved on to understand what are the different models that we have, or the different technological platforms we can use, and also we moved on to understand what are the business domain where you can apply business forecasting, and what are the challenges that we have in business forecasting. So I'll share the PPT deck with the SSODL office, and then we used in Excel sheet, this Excel sheet, first to understand a growth-based forecasting, the most common growth-based forecasting methods. So we talked about average annual year-on-year growth, the SAGR method, and the CAGR method. So you have learned how to calculate average year-on-year growth and how to apply that to estimate 2025 revenue. Then how to calculate SAGR and how to apply SAGR in estimating 2025 revenue from the last recorded figure of 40 crore. And then what is CAGR and how to apply CAGR to estimate 2025 revenue. We learned the mathematical formula, which is mentioned here, and also the rate formula. So this is the rate formula. So here rate formula is used. Rate formula is used. Then we moved on to compounding for less than 1 year, like compounding quarterly kind of scenario. Then I'm given you one exercise. You have to solve this homework. I'll share this Excel sheet, and then we'll moved about continuously compounding formula for less than 90 days period. I use this formula F equal to P into E to the power Rn. We applied this formula here, and we compare it with simple interest situation for 30 days, and we see that this is compounding, continuously compounding is slightly more. This is around 25 rupees extra on compared to simple interest. Then we talked about linear interpolation and linear extrapolation. Is an application of CAGR basically. So we have two questions A and B that we have solved. A, we have used linear interpolation to estimate 2020 revenue, and B, we have used linear extrapolation to estimate 2026 revenue. And then we have learned about application of SAGR, and then we talked about absolute change and relative change. Absolute change and relative change we have learned for a value which is not expressed in percentage or decimal, like 12 crore, 15 crore, 18 crore. This is all not already expressed in percentage. Then we have, this is very clear to understand what is the absolute change and what is the relative change. But I have warned you, when we compare two data points which are already expressed in percentage, for example, GDP growth figure of India from 27 to 2024, these are already expressed as a percentage. So absolute change also come in percentage and relative change also come in percentage, thereby creating a big confusion. To avoid that confusion, we said that we use a concept called basis point or percentage point. So we have 100 basis point equal to 1 percentage point. So I've given two examples between 23 to 24, the negative 58 basis point change, but the relative change is minus 7.65%. And between 22 to 23, the changed, the GDP has by positive 59 basis point, and the relative change is plus 8.44%. So this is a positive absolute change of 59 basis point. The relative change is 8.44%. So I stop here today. Thank you, Alvin, for all your help. So next class we'll log in from the Teams app so that we can have it with the background. So I'm stop sharing. Please, the recording also to be stopped. And thank you so much. We'll see you next class. Next class will start from moving averages, simple moving average, weighted moving average, and of course the exponential moving average. So please revise the concept of simple moving average, weighted moving average, and exponential moving average, and come slightly prepared. I will teach slowly, but you will be in a better position to absorb the concept if you come with a slight preliminary understanding of what is a moving average and what is a simple moving average. You can prepare on your own, or I can share some uh, notes with the SSODL office. So thank you so much. So I am ending this session here, and we'll share this PPT and the Excel sheet. You can practice and come prepared to the next class. So today we have just from the basic concept module 1 of business forecasting and some growth-based forecasting methods, interpolations, comparisons, absolute change, basis point, all those concepts, SAGR, CAGR, YOY growth, all those concepts are touched. So for a basic business forecasting, this is what we expect. Next is we'll move on to moving averages, right? So thank you so much. I'm stopping here, Alvin. Thank you. So I'm leaving, and that will automatically, I think, stop the recording.